Hello and welcome to the show. Today I will be reviewing the Toyota FT-1 in Gran Turismo 6. Now the first thing you will notice about this car is it is rather odd looking. The front of the car kind of looks like a mix between a 458 Italia and a Formula 1 car that sort of slightly melted and smudged around in Photoshop. It's bizarre. I'm not a particular fan. The front of this vehicle, it looks really, really odd. When we come around to the side, things start to get a little better. For some reason, this reminds me a bit of the new Corvette as well, the body shape. I'm not entirely sure why that is. From the side, it looked much better, and from the rear, again, it looks considerably better. A little bit like a TVR Sagaris, only with the exhaust pointing in the right direction. This car does have a rear spoiler that I'm not a particular fan of. It's currently only comes up at a certain speed, like 60 miles an hour or something. I'm not a particular fan of the spoiler. It's sort of too narrow. It doesn't go across the entire back of the car, which makes it look a little bit weird. So yeah, as far as styling goes, it certainly won't be for everybody. I'm sure there are some people who will like the styling. I like a car to be a bit different, to be a bit unique. This one's just a little bit ugly, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to driving, though, that's the more important thing. You know, it doesn't matter what the car looks like if it drives very, very well. Now, of course, all of the specifications, if you like, of the performance and all of that is made up for this game. This is a concept car, after all. So when I'm talking about this car, I'm talking about this car within Gran Turismo 6. As far as sort of speed goes, 0 to 60, it is pretty damn quick. I can't find a way to benchmark it or anything, but I would imagine it's probably around the 3.5 second mark. It'll go on to a top speed of 183 miles an hour is the fastest I could get it on the very, very long straights. I can't remember, like Special Stage X or I don't know, one of the really long tracks. So sort of acceleration and top speed wise, it's not bad. Sure, it's not the fastest car in the world, but yeah, that's pretty respectable performance figures. Handling is a bit interesting. It didn't handle how I expected it. When you come up to a corner, there's quite a lot of turn-in understeer. Reminds me a little bit of the ACR Viper in this respect. Now, I like cars that drive like that. That's my driving style. I want to have a car, or I would rather have a car that has a bit of understeer on turn-in than a car that is a little bit oversteery. It's just the way I drive cars. When I've talked about this before, people seem to think I'm a little bit weird for that driving style. I may well be, and some people might not like this, some people might. The way I drive this car, it suits my driving style to a point. However, if you get things a little bit wrong, this car is incredibly twitchy. I was really surprised how easy it was to get this thing to step out of line. It just kind of snap at you, and you'd have this snap oversteer that wasn't particularly nice. If you get everything right, then it handles very nicely. If you get things a little bit wrong, you have a problem. So yeah, there's that to contend with. The brakes are pretty damn good. On this vehicle, it will get stopped very, very quickly. I have issues with Gran Turismo. When you turn ABS off, I sometimes have issues. I'm not sure if it's to do with my steering wheel or what's going on with it, where the brakes will lock up sort of without you putting very much pressure on it at all. That is not a fault of the car, as you see there. It's not the car's fault. That's just something to do with the Gran Turismo and my steering wheel. I'm going to have to spend a long time trying to get that to work. But on the most part, this car, it does handle very, very well. It does also regain some style points when you get to the interior, because I love the heads-up display on this thing. It is absolutely excellent. It is very sort of fighter jetty, and that's always a good thing when it comes to cars. It might not be quite as cool as the Lamborghini Reventon's sort of display, if you like, but yeah, I really do quite like this. The one thing I haven't been able to figure out, though, is next to the numbers on the steering wheel that's indicating your gears, is a yellow sort of bar that occasionally goes a bit red. I spent a good 4 or 5 minutes trying to figure out what that is. I think it's something to do with revs, but I'm not entirely sure. If you look at the heads-up display with the speed on it, there's a rev counter around the outside of that. So I don't know what the yellow bar thing is doing. If anybody knows, let me know in the comment section, because I have no blooming clue. I'm thinking it's something to do with revs. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I do like the interior though. It's a little bit simplistic, but this is designed to be sort of a sports track day-ish kind of car, so that's fine with me. And yeah, it wins quite a few points back on the rather awesome heads-up display. The problem with the Toyota is I'm not really sure what it's trying to compete against, where it fits in. And it has a number of rivals for whatever category that it might go in. For example, you have the Corvette C7, the latest Corvette. This is probably the slowest car here. It is also the cheapest though, 51,000 credits. Is not bad for a 450 horsepower car, and this drives very, very well. I was quite surprised how well this Corvette drove. I think this is one of the more basic versions of the Corvette. There's a Z06 version, I believe, that's been announced recently that'll be more powerful. So yeah, this doesn't quite have the acceleration, won't quite have the top speed. However, it handles really well. Again, it's got a little bit of understeer on turnings, but it's nowhere near as twitchy as the Toyota, and I appreciate that's kind of weird saying the Corvette is not as twitchy and oversteery as a Toyota sports car. Yeah, it's just how it is. It's just how things work. Yeah, I was really surprised how well this Corvette drove, and it probably it was a bit easier to drive at least than the Toyota. Another big rival in the fairly cheap, well, the very cheap supercar category would be the Nissan GT-R. This is the, oh god, I can't remember. Is it the 07 version, I think, on Gran Turismo? It's not quite the latest version of the GT-R, but that's just what I have to work with. 77,000 credits means it is pretty damn cheap for what you get. I'm not a massive fan of the GT-R because what I appreciate is it's incredibly quick. It does kind of feel like the car could go that quick without you bother driving it. It is very technologically advanced, and I'd rather have a car that I feel more in control of than this. Yeah, it is monstrously fast around a track, incredibly quick car, and doesn't cost a lot of money. Again, this is a very easy car to drive as well. Of course, it will be. It's four-wheel drive. Much easier to drive than the Toyota. And yeah, it is very quick around the track for not a lot of money. Then, if you kind of go into the 100,000 credits sort of area, you're looking at the Viper ACR, a car that if you watch my videos regularly, you will know I love this car. It is a fantastic car to drive on Gran Turismo as well as on Forza. It is a great vehicle. And yeah, this is where the problem comes in for the Toyota, is it just doesn't have the handling of some of these cars. The Viper, as I said, it can be a little bit understeery. Some people can have problems with these, as they are a lot more understeery than you expect. But it's also a real pain if you want to get one of these things sideways. Of course, with all of these vehicles, if you boot it and turn it, you will get them going sideways. However, the Toyota is just more twitchy. Like, I'm being careful with all of these vehicles. I'm going for lap times with these, so I get a big lock up. And the Toyota was much twitchier, much easier to get it to step out of line and to have problems. Whereas in the Viper, in this Viper and in the Viper that's coming up, neither of these had that same sort of problem, which is odd considering these are both over 600 horsepower V10s. Don't know what engine is in the Toyota. I'm going to guess it is not quite as powerful as these. And yeah, these just handle better. The SRT Viper that we have here is a little bit more expensive. You're starting looking at 128,000 credits, I think, for this car. I was surprised by how much this cost actually in Gran Turismo. I thought it'd be a little bit cheaper. But again, it's just easier to drive than the Toyota. The Toyota's twitchiness does cause it some problems. The real sort of thing with the Toyota is how much would it cost? How much would it cost compared to these cars? Because yeah, we start getting through sort of towards the more expensive vehicles, and the Toyota just doesn't have the speed or the grip. Now, interestingly, Gran Turismo rates the Toyota at 544 performance points. It rates this Lamborghini Gallardo LP560 at 456. So there's basically 2 performance points in it between these two cars, which means that they should be very even. They're not, though. The Gallardo it's easier to drive, it's four-wheel drive, it accelerates faster, I believe it has a higher top speed, and let's face it, given the choice, you have a choice of a Toyota or a Lamborghini, and I'm sorry, I'm always going to go for the Lamborghini. Of course, the Lamborghini is an awful lot of money. It costs 280,000 credits, I believe, this one, but you know, you're not just paying for the performance, you're paying for the Lamborghini badge, you're paying for the looks, the sounds, and yeah, the Lamborghini is a nice car. Another one I was surprised actually. This thing was a lot easier to drive than I thought it might be, and it was a little bit easier to drive than the Toyota as well. When we have a look at the lap times, yeah, the Toyota did struggle a little bit. The Toyota's in there twice because I drove it first and I hadn't driven on Gran Turismo for a while, so I went back to it after I'd done all of the other cars. Quicker than the Corvette, however, it is slower than the rest of the field. And yeah, this is where it throws up the real question with this car is to how much money would it cost? I mean, if you're looking at a similar price to the Corvette, then yeah, that is phenomenal value, and I would then very highly recommend this car as one of the best value for money vehicles. As well, it's only sort of 0.2 of a second slower than the much more expensive Viper GTS. The problem is, if you start looking at more money for it, if it starts going in towards the Nissan GT-R territory, that's when the Toyota might start to struggle, because even more than that, you know, you've got the likes of the ACR Viper. yeah, then you're starting to struggle when you compare the likes of them, because this car just doesn't have the grip through the corners and doesn't quite have the acceleration either. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed driving this car. It was quite a fun car to drive, but actually as a race car, it's just too twitchy for my liking, and it's not as quick around the track as the other cars. Again, this also throws up a little bit of the wonky performance rating. This was quite a bit slower than the Lamborghini Gallardo that it's supposedly equal with. The Gallardo is rated quite a bit lower than the Viper, although this track's not really suited to the Lamborghini or the Viper. It's a little bit too short for them, and they have quite long gears, so they're not really ideal for this track. This car has pretty good gearing, actually. I did like the gearing on here for this track. I didn't have to bother tuning. No tuning was done with any of these vehicles, and the gearing is pretty good on this car. It's not massively long like you get on the ACR Viper. So yeah, the conclusion with this car is, it's not a bad car to drive, it's just not exceptional. How much it costs is probably going to be more of a factor. On Gran Turismo at the moment, you get it free if you complete the seasonal event for this car. So yeah, it doesn't really have a price, so you can't really compare its two sort of vehicles within its price range. It does struggle a little bit. The looks, I'm not a fan of. You might be. As a concept car, is cool if they put it into production, which I hope they do. If they just sort of fixed a few things, I think it could be an incredibly good looking car, because it will be different than what's out there at the moment. As it is at the moment, yeah, I'm not a massive fan, but it's certainly not a bad car. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.